using building information modeling. So we use that as our reference. And actually is not related to the BIM, but the processes or the activities or the thing happening in the movie. So that's inspired us to relate back to our current activity. So same goes to imitation games, yeah, Malik. So have you seen the movie, Malik?
Yes, I saw the movie where they're trying to defeat the Germans. But at the end of the day, they were able to crack the German code, and through the machine that they developed, and yeah, they were able to defeat the Germans. It's quite an interesting one, and we urge everyone to see it as well.
Yeah. So the inspired things that we learn from the movie is that they never give up, on predictive something. They keep on doing it, and then the trust is number one. And another thing is that's take away from the movie, is you need to communicate each others, and communicating each others, we create more brain knowledge, even though the other party is not really good on the topic that they are talking about, but sometimes because of the thinking, when they discuss and then they communicate, they create another knowledge there where they can use that knowledge to do other things, So that's the best part of the thing when they discover during we call it teh tarik session, or maybe in the movie they call it drinking session at night, where they chit chat and discuss about things happening, and then they can relate back to their research or their activity on to do the to identify what are type of the codes that they need to break. So that's the good part, actually, because of the communicating in facility management, especially in maintenance, So we always not really communicating with others. So we tends to not to talk with other teams, meanwhile the other people also using the asset or the facility that we develop for them, or they also doing the maintenance for the other part of the equipment. But the integration of the communication, normally we don't do that at the moment. That's why sometimes we work in silo when we want to do the maintenance of the building or maintenance of the asset that we have. So we tend not to communicate. We not to talk with each other because we thought that other people are not important to us. Then we lack of the brain power. We just limited our brain power to ourselves. Okay, Malik. Where should we start? Maybe what other are
Okay.
joining us?
Yeah, I think we have a few participants still joining in. Mr. Sharina, one more thing that we learned from that movie was that initially they were receiving data from the Germans. They were getting this data, but they could not make sense out of this data until when they were able to break this code. Same applies to our maintenance of facilities today. If we get all this data and we are not able to do anything about this data, then the data it's of no value to us. So that's one key aspect we learned from that. So,
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, in the movie, they like on daily they receive
yeah.
100,000 of data. So there is a cut-off date. The cut-off times. When the data is valid. It's always like 12 o'clock at midnight.
Exactly.
So after that, the data is no longer valid. So it means that the data have a validity. Same goes to our maintenance activity. The data have a validity. So when we don't appreciate the data, or we don't really look into a data seriously, the data become expired, and obsolete, or they call it obsolete, and they can't use the data for the next days, So that's what we also like, how they make use their daily data to do the predictions, Once the next day the data is no longer valid for the other activities, So I think it's related to our maintenance activity also, Malik, because
Yes.
like you said, we always receive a lot of data daily, but we don't process it at the on the spot, or we don't really look on the data on that particular time when we receive it. Maybe we keep on delaying. The moment we delay, evaluate or analyze the data, so in FM, the data will be obsolete. It's no longer valid for the next days. For example.
There's one new quote that's going on now. They said data is the new oil of the digital economy.
Yeah.
It shows you how data can do more for us in our facility. It's quite important to analyze our data.
Okay, so let's start with our session today. Do you have anything to bring it on?
Okay, as we said earlier on, we'll be kickstarting with some series of questions. And to our participants as well, if you have any questions, please do bring them in, push them in. We'll be glad to take them regarding maintenance policy, maintenance strategy. So first of all, we'll start with the first question we have for Mr. Sharinon. How do you define maintenance?
Well, this is we talk about very fundamental question first, because before we talk about the predictive later on, need to understand what is definition of maintenance. They got a lot of definition, but the simple thing is that the act of maintaining, the state of being maintained, support the building has suffered from years of poor maintenance. Something that maintains at least half of them are living parasitically, or the other half instead of producing maintenance for themselves. So I think that is written by G.B. Shaw. So I think definition of maintenance is like the activities requires or undertaken to conserve as nearly and as long as possible the original condition of an asset or resources while compensating for normal wear and tear. Meanwhile, as an accounting, is a periodic cost incurred in activity that preserves an asset's operational status without extending its life. Maintenance is an expenses that's unlike capital improvement, which is extended of an asset life, and it's not a capitalized. But again, on the engineering is an action necessary for retaining or restoring a piece of equipment, assets, a machine, or a system to be specified operable condition to achieve its maximum useful of life. So it's a lot of and if we talk about law, needing or in litigation without having a genuine stake by taking side or giving financial or assistance to one of the litigant party. So it's a lot, definition of maintenance if you want to apply different activities, But today, of course, we talk about FMs. So it's make sure that the activity that can prolong or can rectify the issues to the assets. So at least that's how do you define maintenance, Malik? So
okay, yeah. I think we have taken two points from this definition. It's quite important to note that first of all, it's restoring our asset or facility to a normal working condition. Another interesting part is that for us to be able to prolong our assets to its life cycle, we need to carry out maintenance on these assets, because if we don't do maintenance on this asset, then our assets cannot reach their expected life cycle. So two important points we note there.
Yeah, it's a simple thing. It's like the most important thing in our life, our asset is our body. So if we just talking about the asset of FM, but we forgot to maintain our own asset, So I think if we go back to the simple way of to understand the maintenance to your body, what are the actually things that you already spend to make sure you can maintain yourself, So maybe we talk about the health, There's simple things that we talk about maintenance if you want to understand the maintenance. For example, the question that I always ask to myself, what are the good food that I always give to myself to make sure my body can extend the life cycle. so, so what are the good food, the food that have nutrition, like people always say that, oh, okay, good foods, nutrition. So what is nutrition, so they always like, I always state or like to use cars, when you talk about maintenance to our body, you have to make sure that you take a nutrition food, so what are the nutrition food? So I always start with 3 words or 3 objects, CAR, So later on, maybe people will ask what is CAR for maintenance of the body. So we go back to that session. Okay, we go back to that question. Okay, maybe we focus about the example of our body. How we maintain our body. We provide a good food. How about the maintenance the facility? What do you provide? So how you know that you can start to do the maintenance? Okay.
Mr. Sharano, this term maintenance, it has some people have a negative thoughts about it, that okay, it's all about, especially the top management, they always think the maintenance people, they always take money, to do maintenance, they don't always bring back money into the organization. So how do we make sure to bring this term back again?
It's like they're, for them, the maintenance is not really important.
Yes.
The maintenance is like very, very, cost them a lot of money.
Exactly.
So they are not interested. They're not interested to perform the maintenance. So sometimes they forgot to put good budget for maintenance. So how to ensure that the organization need to put their interest on maintaining their asset or facility. I always refer to how we maintain our body, and how we maintain our body. If we forgot to eat or to take vitamin, and can our body produce more vitamin when if we become aging, when we become very old? It's like when we didn't put focus on our body to maintain our body. So as simple as that, right? So we got very poor, we call it very poor muscles, body, or maybe energy, because we didn't put the maintenance important. It's like a behavior. So when you don't take care of your body, it means that how can you take care of an asset? So, and if you don't take care, if you don't put look on the maintenance is very important to your body, same goes to the assets. So, and of course, we cannot compare our body with our facility, because our body, we don't have spare parts.
Yeah,
in facility,
exactly.
there is a spare parts. We can replace it. But to replace it is costly. To replace it on the spot is costly. So, like our body, we can't. We can't replace things. We cannot replace your finger. You cannot replace your eye. But you can do maintenance, to make sure that we can make use the assets. So it's important that and nowadays people build a lot of buildings. They put a lot of money to build a very beautiful building, but when they want to put the budget for maintenance, they are very reluctant to put extra money to maintain the expensive building that they already constructed. So this is I think it's not a good attitude, because we spend a lot of money, we spend millions and billions of ringgit, and then yet we not consider to maintaining it. Why? and why? Is it because of our behavior, our attitudes, or because our thinking that maintenance is not important? So like you have a vehicles lah, like you have a car, if you don't put the maintenance of your car, maybe it break down while you are driving to very important, while you are driving for the very important meetings. So because of that, you lose a lot of business. Suddenly you lose a meeting, you can't attend the meeting, and then because of you didn't attend that meeting, you maybe miss for opportunity for the big jobs. Just because of that, we forgot to maintain the car. So, and maybe there is a visitor to our building, and the very important VVIP, very important person that to visit our office, but because of our office have poor maintenance, so, and by right during the visit, so they will be making a few deal, but because of that, so they can't visit your facility or attend to your come to your building and cannot meet you up, and you suddenly lost opportunity. So, and we always say that I forgot. We always said, if I know that thing will happen, but it's actually you know already because it's your behavior not to put a lot of effort on maintenance. So you cannot blame anybody. You need to, because of that, forgot about maintaining the building or maintaining the assets. So, and it's too late. While that thing happened, it's too late already, Malik.
Yes, exactly.
Because maintenance is the activity that you need to do daily, or you need to really focus on that. You cannot just simply not to focus on the maintenance activity. Okay.
It's important that you have really established the importance of maintenance through the breakdown analogy you talked about. If our asset breaks down, it may be detrimental to our organization. You have production losses as well as other effects as well. Okay, so I think we'll move on to the next question now. So what are the types of maintenance we have?
Good one. Maybe expert people, they have many type of maintenance, but fundamentally this only have two. It started from two. First is a corrective maintenance. Second is preventive maintenance. We start with corrective maintenance. So normally when we have a facility, we always have a complaint or an issues of the facility. So from that, they initiate a corrective activity. So you need to rectify how to make sure that the asset can be used again or utilized again. So we call that corrective maintenance. Very simple things in the maintenance activity where a lot of people do this, or maybe a lot of people do this when the thing happen. We call it, some people call it the ad hoc maintenance. Corrective is always ad hoc. When the thing happen, you need to correct it, and it's always happen ad hoc. At that particular time, you need to rectify it. In order for you to reduce the corrective maintenance activity, so you need to perform a preventive maintenance. Because the preventive maintenance is like you service your car every month or based on your mileage. So that we call it preventive maintenance. And always preventive maintenance have a schedule. Meanwhile, corrective maintenance, you don't have schedules. So it only happen and you need to rectify. And they don't have schedule. When is the corrective? When we want to do a corrective maintenance? It always happen ad hoc. Or maybe when, for example, when you come to your office, suddenly the air conditioning cannot work. Then you need to do a corrective maintenance in order for you to use back the aircon, to use back the assets. Then we form a corrective maintenance. Meanwhile, if you want to reduce the corrective maintenance activity, So you need to do preventive maintenance. When you do preventive maintenance, so it means that you already have schedules. You schedule when you want to do the maintenance activity on your air conditioning system. When you want to do the activity, maintenance activity to your car, to your motorcycles, or to your house. So you always call it preventive maintenance. By having these two combination, corrective and preventive, so there will be create another activity on the type of maintenance. We call it predictive. So we mean that when the things occur, like the issues occur, and then when you have a pattern, when it occur, when you do a preventive maintenance, also you identify there is issues of your asset that you need to do rectification works or corrective work of your assets after you conduct a preventive maintenance. And when you got the patterns, and you start to analyze the activity, and you can come up with the estimation, or maybe we call it predictive. So we predict from the data that we have. So you can start to do predictive. So, and when you do predictive, then you need to integrate it with the preventive maintenance activities. Mean that predictive is also have a date. And then from the date you schedule back during your preventive maintenance. So it means that your preventive maintenance activity it become more details. I mean, with the assumption of something, we call it the assumption as predictive. You are predictive something. You are like a tok bomo, like a dukun, or they call it black magic. So you can show, oh, I'm sure next month the aircon will break down. How do you know? Oh, from the patterns that I have. It's a modern what they call it, Malik, in your country, the wish, or the black magic. So
Witchcraft.
it's like, what do you call it?
Witchcraft, right?
Yeah, I mean, so they predict. I mean, it's like you are predicting something. But this is a real technological element inside that. So because of you got a lot of data. So the assumption is more accurate. So then you can predict. Like we don't predict the weather, or we call it what? Forecast. Weather we call forecast. We don't predict. So we forecast. The nice word of prediction. So but actually it's also predicting. Forecasting maintenance. Can we call forecasting maintenance? Forecast is only meant for weather. But same, the weather also based from data. The movement of the cloud, the thunderstorms. So then call it predictive, but we call it forecast. Because forecast sometimes happen, sometimes not happening. Okay, back to predictive. So from the data of the corrective, from the data of when you do a preventive maintenance, you get an element of the pattern. So from that patterns, you put the element of technical inside there. You start looking about the technical materials or the guideline of the manufacturer recommendation. Then you start to come out your predictive maintenance. Then you go back again to your preventive maintenance activity. You start to schedule it when the predictive maintenance will be happen. So this is like activities that in these two, corrective and preventive maintenance. Of course, in these two activities, in these two type of maintenance, there will be a element of, we call it condition assessment. So condition assessment is mean that the activity when you do a preventive maintenance, we call the activity is condition assessment. You are assessing the asset condition when you schedule it in the preventive maintenance activity. Inside this condition assessment, you got a lot of checklists. A lot of checklists that you need to check the assets. From this checklist, become a very big data. When you analyze the data, it becomes another prediction that you can create. So this is like a cycle of activities that never stops. we do it and do it again and again, you know. So until we decided to dismantle the asset or demolish the asset, or we call it dispose the assets, and you start again when you have new asset. So this is the initial type of maintenance, where later on become more things like predictive maintenance, you know. What else that the other element of the, or we call it risk-based or condition-based maintenance, you know. So there's more names came out, you know. But of course, initially it came from the two: corrective and predictive activities. So is that answering your question?
Yes, Mr. Sharon. It's quite interesting to see how these maintenance activities are linked together, from the on-demand maintenance, that's corrective maintenance, through to preventive maintenance. And if we don't do preventive maintenance, we'll have to be doing more of corrective maintenance, which eventually is going to cost us more to our organization. And one interesting fact also is how it comes into predictive maintenance, when we look at patterns in our data, like you mentioned, and then we will now go back to our preventive maintenance schedule. You know, we'll be able to make adjustment to our schedules, correct them, and see that, okay, we need to be doing our preventive maintenance at this time. We're actually forecasting, we're predicting, they are following the same concept as you said earlier. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, it started from these two types, you know. He created, and when we start thinking, we start collecting data, we start evolving, we start plug in a new equipment, plug in a new tools, you know. So then become the maintenance become more growing, you know. So of course the only one reason to ensure that our assets, we can extend it, you know. We can extend the life of the asset, the life cycle, or the usefulness date of the asset, you know. So when we extend it, you know, maybe we need to look back about the cost of replacement, you know. Maybe when we spend too much of the maintenance, you know, or the preventive maintenance, you know, maybe the cost of the asset it become I mean, the cost to maintain the asset become growing, you know, it's growth, you know. And maybe it's time for you to relook back, you know, and when you can replace or dispose the assets, you know. So by having that, you know, it help you to come up with a new capital budgeting, you know, and then you can start to identify when is the time that we can dispose the asset and get the new asset. And we have to make sure that we already reach our ROI, you know, maybe return of investment, you know, we already exceeded, you know, for example, exceeded. I mean, we already have benefit. For example, when you do the maintenance, you can extend the life cycle, you know, and you estimate that we only want to use the asset for 5 years. But when you do a proper maintenance, good maintenance, you know, good activities on maintenance, you actually extend it to another 2 or 3 more years that you still can use the assets. And by all means, you know, you save a lot of money, you know, because you're supposed to, for example, you're supposed to replace the asset for the next 5 years. But because of you do a right and efficient way of maintaining the asset, you can use, you can extend the life of the asset for 3 more years. Just imagine the saving of the capital investment and that you can save, you know. So this is the good part of the when you do a proper maintenance activities. So you save long run, you save a lot of money on your capital investment because you already meet your ROI, then definitely exceeded, you know, and you don't need to spend next 5 years, but you spend another 4 years, extra 4 years to replace a new asset. By doing that, maybe the technology is better, you know, and you can get a better asset with the because of the you can save your money because of the maintenance. For example, when you maintain your car very well, you know, and then you extend the life cycle of it, when you want to start selling it, okay, this is the good point is that when you start to sell your asset and people start looking at your car in very good condition, even though the life cycle is only like 7 years, so you still get a good value of your car. So these are the things like and maybe other people like to maintain the car very good. Other people, they just say, I just use it for 5 years. After that, I just sell off, by anyone. I don't want to maintain it. So it depends on how we look on our asset. Okay, what's next?
Okay, Mr. Sharon, thank you. We'll move on to the next question now. What is maintenance strategy?
Wow, this become heavier and heavier. When we look about the maintenance strategies, normally is a define the rule for the sequence of planned maintenance work. Contain general scheduling information and then can be assigned to as many maintenance tasks, and then you can do a proper planning as required, So you need to, when you talk about the maintenance strategy, you need to define, what are the rules of sequence, or what are the planning activities that you want to do in your maintenance strategy. So when you talk about maintenance schedules, you want to schedule maintenance in any task given, and you need to put up a deadline and who is the assigned person to do, and then what are the tasks that they need to check or they need to perform, like regular intervals, whether it's a one-time task or maybe it's a monthly or weekly task, And then the reason why is that when you schedule is of course to reduce the activity of the corrective maintenance, and when you schedule it properly, and then you can have a proper people to look after the assets, and to make sure that the equipment is not failure to or the equipment is not failure to perform their duty or to perform their activity, like the aircon, there's not failure to perform their duty to make sure the room is cool, So, and this is, I mean, to come up with the maintenance strategy, you need to do a lot of activities. The planning activities like how many people that you require to perform the maintenance, when you want to perform the maintenance, what are the time constraint that you have, and then when you want to perform it, what are the tools that you require, so, and what type of people that you should have, sometimes the maintenance strategy, people don't really look the strategic way to come up with the maintenance activities, We thought they just look at the manual and just perform the duty, So normally as maintenance strategy is like how we did the business strategy lah. So we need to come up with a lot of thinking about it, So sorry. So when you said about strategy, it's always about the activities in strategies, that the activities to come up with the strategies actually, but we relate to the maintenance activity. So of course, you need to do SWOT analysis. You need to come up with your mission and vision about your maintenance. What are your mission? What are vision when you want to come up with maintenance strategy? And then you need to do also a SWOT analysis. You need to identify your strength, your team strength, your internal strength, your weakness, your team weakness, and of course, you need to look also the external elements, like the threat, that if you don't maintain the equipment well, what is the threat? And the opportunity that you should get when you perform the maintenance activities, So it's similar things like how you do a business strategy, but more focused to do a maintenance strategy. So, or they call it operation maintenance strategy. So then from there we can start to apply the lean management inside the strategy. You want to calculate the time, The good part is that I learned something in the YouTube about this maintenance element. We want to come up with the maintenance strategy. There is a people that time how long it takes for the cleaner to clean the toilets. And I see this very useful when you want to come up with the maintenance analysis. The time, how long it takes the cleaner to clean the toilet for one cubicle, and then the time they start to make a calculate it. If I have 20-story building with five toilet per floor, and we start to calculate how long it takes my cleaner to clean all the toilet per day, and then we start to identify what are the wastages, times working from one floor to another floor. So it's part and parcel of the lean management. Calculate the wastage. But are we really prepare a maintenance strategy? I don't know. I'm not sure. You need to ask yourself. You need to ask your maintenance team whether you actually come up with a good maintenance strategy, how you come up with the business strategy. So these sometimes people don't understand how to come up with a strategy, but they know how to come up with the business strategy. It's related actually, because if you are a maintenance company, you need to come up with your business strategy, and then you want to apply it to your business on maintaining, and then you to apply it to your clients. So it's like how we do a business strategy, but we are actually name it a maintenance strategy. And if you want to calculate further, you need to do a tau analysis, and then you come up with a short-term and long-term plan. And it goes back to your preventive maintenance. When you said short-term plan, what is related to the asset, long-term plan, what it's all about. So it's actually related. So if you want to talk about this maintenance strategy, the good part is that you apply this strategy to the maintenance. So then you can come up with a good maintenance plan and good maintenance strategy. So when you sell to your clients, then the clients see that, oh, you have a strategy to conduct the maintenance activity in our premises or in our assets, which is we never thought about it. Then from there you can conduct how much in terms of economy of scale on how much saving that you want to apply, or you can get, or you can harvest from your activities.
Okay, Mr. Sharano, I think yeah, the maintenance strategy is quite a broad aspect, and it encompasses several aspects as well. This is where the leadership role comes in also, where we talk about what goal we want to achieve, like how many downtime we want to reduce, how much cost we want to also cut for our corrective maintenance. Talking about the staff capacity, like you mentioned, how much staff is needed to complete this task, and as well as staff training,
Yeah,
it's quite a broad topic in which implementing a maintenance strategy in an organization, it takes even the leadership role to come in and do this. Okay. So I think we'll move on to the next question. Okay. So a lot of data is being generated during the maintenance phase. What are these data, and how is this data useful to us?
Wow. Now we go back to data again. This is the new oil. So that the data is very useful for the manufacturer. Actually, they really want to collect this data because they want to improve their design of their equipment. But most likely the manufacturer didn't have this data because if unless the equipment it have the, we call it as the connection to the internet or to the cloud, they can collect the pattern. That's why if you use your notebooks, Apple's, Microsoft, when you have problems on your PC or your laptops, so they always say, do you like to share your issues with them? Because they want to analyze, they want to study what are the problem occur on their machine. So this one of the data, or one of the element of the how they want to collect data. Okay, when we talk about what are the data that been generated during the maintenance phase, okay. First, uh, simple things about the maintenance data is a problem types, you know. Or maybe we don't talk about problem type yet. Maybe the okay. When we make a pull request system or complaint system, we always have we always have a column where we call it what is the problem. Okay. Uh, for example, you know, when we talk about lighting, what are the problem? Not working, uh, blinking, you know, what else, you know? So this is the problem types, you know. So this is one of the element of the data that been generated or collected during the maintenance phase. The problems, you know, the issues, you know, and how you want to term it, you know, the issues. You know. When you said about the aircon problems, not cold. What else? You know, intermittent. You know. What else? You know, what are the problem on the air conditioning? So this is the always the data when you conduct the maintenance activity. So we always collect this, you know. And second is the time, you know. When is the problem occur? Time is important. If normally in the complaint system or complaint form, you want them to record when you make a complaint because you want to know when it happened, the time, and then and maybe when you start to do the maintenance activity, you start to ask about symptom. Okay, why it happened, when it happened, how it happened. You know? So this is always being collected by the maintenance team because they want to know how the problem occur, why it occur. You know, because from this data later on they collect it and then maybe they use this data to rectify it. You know, so maybe if you are not the maintenance team, you are not involved in maintenance, you might not understand what I'm talking about. Okay, is this data is like you go and see the doctor. So maybe you have a fever, then you go and see the doctor, and doctor start to see your temperature. So they want to collect data. You know, the temperature reading of your body is the first data that they want to collect. Okay. So after they collect, while they are collecting the temperature, they start asking you few questions or a lot of questions, especially now COVID-19, you know. So maybe you got a pile of questions that you require to answer if you have a if you have a high fever, you know, maybe your temperature like 37.9, you know, so they start asking, okay, maybe they start concerning about whether you are infected with COVID-19. You know? So this is part and parcel of the maintenance data. They start maybe they start to taking your blood pressure, you know. They start to see whether you have a sore throat or not, you know. They start want to watch your mouth, you know, whether they got some infection in your mouth, you know, with sore throat, you know. They start asking you whether you are coughing or not, you know. So, and this is data related to the body, you know. So they ask question because it's part of the diagnosis element, and then from that, you know, then they come out with the how to rectify, you know, before they can issue you a slip of medicine for you to take, you know. For example, that is related to our body, you know. But if you look on the maintenance of the aircon or maybe maintenance of your car, when the technician or the mechanic want to repair your car, they start asking you a few questions. If you have an answer, it's good because it helps them to rectify it very fast. But if you don't have proper answer or if you have wrongly answer, so they can make the rectification maybe a mistake or maybe longer time to rectify the issues, you know. So this is a series of data that been generated during maintenance phase, you know. Then of course mechanic they never jot down the activities, but doctor normally they jot down, they write in their reports, and because later on become approved, then you want to give you prescription of the medicine. So based on the diagnosis, this is the prescription of the medicines that you need to prescribe upon you take. So as mechanic, they don't write. They just go and rectify. And then at the end of the day, they give you the bills. So this is the cost for you to maintain the car, for do the corrective. But preventive is different. Normally preventive, they never ask you questions. They see your mileage is 5,000 kilometers. That's it, 5,000. I need to do this. They have a checklist. They have a checklist. The preventive, normally in preventive maintenance, they don't ask question. Corrective maintenance, they always ask question. Because they want to diagnose it. They want to get. They want to know why it happened, what are things, how can they rectify it very fast. And this is the in preventive, they don't ask question, because they already have a checklist, and they see the symptom, 5,000 kilometer, they know what to do. 5,000, they need to check what and what and what and what, and then from that what they come out with the when they have the checklist, then they immediately perform the maintenance activities. So when you said how is this data useful to us, okay, I already answered it, because when you do corrective, the data is useful because you can perform the right way to do corrective maintenance. Meanwhile, when you do preventive maintenance, because the data is already there, but they do need to do further checking in order for them to come out with the reports. And from that report, they become a pattern later on, and then maybe they can do this information, both information, corrective and preventive, for the predictive maintenance. Okay, that's how data is useful to the maintenance team, and also useful for others when they want to analyze whether they want to replace the asset or not, or they want to dispose the asset or not. So is it okay, Manik?
Yeah, it's quite clear, because you have used the analogy of the human when you go to the doctor, and the doctor tries to do diagnostic on you, collect some data. So that's how we apply it to our facility as well. When we do corrective maintenance, we collect this data. They become historical data for us. They become equipment maintenance history. So this equipment maintenance history, we can later use them to do a fault analysis. We can use them to do equipment failure analysis as well, to see how our asset has been performing, how much they have failed in this year. And you mentioned something earlier on when we should move into disposal of assets. From this data, we can even know, okay, this asset has been failing so much within a span of maybe 1 year or a period of time. Then it's high time you dispose these assets, so that it don't cost you more to an organization. So this data becomes insight for us, to make decisions.
Sometimes, when the maintenance guy asking us question, we tend not to give the right answers. Maybe we tend not to, maybe we look down on them. Maybe we say that we don't want to entertain their question. But by entertaining the maintenance team question, it helps them to rectify it fast. But sometimes people feel annoying because this maintenance guy asking a lot of questions. But sometimes also the maintenance guy never ask you question. They just assume that they know what is the problem. That's also not good. Because there is two type of people. When doing the perform maintenance. One, the maintenance team, they ask you question, and they ask you politely, and from that question, they makes their rectification work much easier. And then sometimes also we tend to give wrong answer. We end up the maintenance team also do because of they not do check and balance. They're not really expert on doing it. They might make another mistake. So it's the best is that it's cooperate. It's like a imitation games. It's a communication. stalking each other. It's no harm to communicate, no harm to give helping the maintenance teams to rectify the issues. And to the maintenance team also, please ask the question politely, because this is your customer, and you need the answer, and you don't ask question politely, you might not getting the answer, so the client might thinking that you are maybe annoying them, so maybe the client thinking that because of you the system breakdown, so I think it should have a two-way communication. You should have an open mind, discuss about it, because anyway the both of us benefit from the rectification works. So this
Mr.
always
Sharon, on this
yeah.
reminded me of search I came across lately, where the users, the users, they make complaints. So the technicians use data, and before they can prepare for the work, then go on. Users don't give complete information at times. So this problem for the technicians, whereby they cannot determine the truth of that work, and they cannot also the tools that are needed. The develop a machine learning algorithm whereby it will be able to classify this maintenance work requests into specific trades, scopes, as well as tools that are needed for the work. So it saves the technicians lots of trip from going to the actual points to check what is happening, then going back again to prepare, get the tools and everything. So once you just see this request, then it classifies it. So it's all bringing us into the predictive analytics we are talking about.
Yeah, another thing is that sometimes when we have a system and the system asks us to key in or putting a lot of information, putting information inside it, please do so, because later on when you want to do a predictive, it helps other people to do analytical processing. And I tend to see many maintenance team, many technicians, they don't want to fill it properly. They don't want to make use this data, uh, make use or jot down this data properly, and end up like there's no proper data later on they carry back to their office. So it make the other people have difficulty to do a preventive or to analyze it, and for them to come out with the predictive maintenance. You just imagine, with this rich of data, and we put it in the Excel, as simple as Excel, we can come out with a lot of patterns, and that's how nowadays people are interested to to make sure that the data is being captured. That's why they created equipment that have a sensors, or they call it IoT. They can link it to internet, because they want to make sure the basic data that they can collect it simply, in simple way. Because for example, time data, when it occurs, what are the symptoms, what are the alarms, what are the signals, that been produced by the equipment. This is very simple data and very useful when you want to do further predictive maintenance, and this we call it machine language, or they call it in order for us to come up with the AI, artificial intelligence. So this data is needed, and then when you do a predictive, so there's like a robotics, but in terms of maintenance, we don't talk about robotic maintenance. We don't have the machine can self maintain, but this data is actually part and parcel of the for us to come up with predictive maintenance. This data is rich, rich data. A simple that, for example, in the elevator, when the elevator, the lift, the movement of the lift, they really got a lot of rich data that we never captured. For example, maybe perhaps the new lift, they have a weight sensor, that then they can collect how many or what are the weight of the people that they carry from one floor to another floor. So this become a predictive pattern. It become a pattern, the usage of the lift, and then and maybe we can balance back with the equipment that we install in the lift, the cables, the rope, we call it wire ropes, what is the wear and tear, and what are the when these people manufacture design the wire ropes, how long it can last, and when we have this kind of patterns, when we compare back to manufacturer design, whether it match or not. So I mean, this is and then the door, the mechanism of the door, how many times it's being closed and open. There is an element of sensor in the elevator, but we never use that. So maybe perhaps in this IoT, I mean, they already have inside the system, but maybe we don't bother to really look into it. Uh, and from this pattern also we can calculate the energy when you want to come up with the energy saving plan, and how can we design the elevator to stand by at the high position during 5 o'clock before people use the lift, the elevator to go down. Every morning they park at a certain floor to make the movements much easier. So this is we didn't use it, and then because of that, the elevator, the maintenance activity, we always goes by maybe wire ropes, how long? 20 years. But whether we study that 20 years with the usage, we didn't do that, maybe. And other than it's like it's a lot of other equipment that have data, whether we realize or not, like CCTV. So if you plug in the CCTV with the analytical systems, we can even calculate how many people using that area. So this become a data that we can make use for our predictive maintenance activity. So, and this data come freely sometimes. This data come free because of there. We don't harvest the data, we don't collect the data. And then we don't use the data to do analysis, but we always use our rule of thumb. Rule of thumb is easier, right? But it's not accurate, sometimes. But maybe you can improve your rule of thumb with this data. You come up with a new rule of thumb because of the pattern. So this data, I mean, it's important actually, but we never appreciate it. In Malaysia, I can say that most of us in the preventive maintenance or in the maintenance activity, we are still at data level. We are not yet really harvesting our data. I mean that we are just collecting it. We don't even thinking about what is data can help you to do maintenance, because it's simple. You just look on the organization chart of the maintenance company. Who in that organization chart is supposed to do this analytical or predictive maintenance? I think most of the organization chart are full of the technician that do maintenance activity ad hoc or preventive maintenance activity timely, but inside the organization chart we don't see who is the analysis, who perform the analysis. And perhaps nowadays is a lot of data scientists in the market that is looking for a job. So, maybe we can use these data scientists, teach them how to come up with this, and maybe they can perform better predictive maintenance reports. They are not expert on that, but they know how to analyze the data. So maybe in future we found that in the organization chart of the maintenance activity, there is a department, a proper department that can do its predictive maintenance, because they are full of the data scientists, graduate from the what they call it, science, quantitative and qualitative or statistics. So these are the future data scientists that can work with the maintenance team to come up with this predictive, to analyze the patterns. They don't need to understand about, they need to expert about the mechanicals, but they're expert about the data analysis. And then they can give a report to the engineers, and then from these reports, then the engineer can make decision. And the decision is much better because it's coupled with the data that being produced by this data scientist, by this graduate from the university that learn about the statistics, learn about the quantitative science. You know. So I think perhaps maybe they can hire these people that looking for a job. You know. Okay, Malik. What do you
Yes,
think?
Mr. Sharano, this is one of the facing in the facility management industry issue of mining. Data mining is very poor. So we need to see more of data mining in the FM sector so as to make good insights and decisions into this. Okay, so we move on to the next question now. Uh, what tools and applications are available for carrying out maintenance?
Okay, simple tools nowadays, is handphone. It's mobile apps. What tools application are available for carrying out maintenance activity, QR codes. So I think this is the simple tools that we it's like it's not the spanner or screwdriver anymore, It's a handphone, It's an iPad, So we require this, because uh, we want to convert all this information and we want to collect it. So, but now when you ask me the tools or application, first is the handphone, the iPhone or the iPads, and the application is mobile apps, where they have maintenance mobile apps inside the handphones, and this is the tools that's currently needed, and we can put a lot of knowledge inside this phone or inside the application, whereby we don't need to have expert maintenance team or technician. We can have a younger technician to perform a preventive maintenance because we have a good guideline, maybe step by step in the phone or in the application. So last time maybe we unable to bring the manual on site, how to maintain things, But now the thick manual, you can bring it over to site in the iPad. Just open up the PDF file, and then maybe you can create a step by step. We call it task-based activity by step. We don't need to have experienced workers to perform that. Meanwhile, experienced workers, we need to put them in the other department to do a predictive maintenance, to do a really big repair jobs. By having this application, the fresh graduates, that they said you don't have experience to do maintenance job. Okay, who cares? Nowadays, we have an app. You give them step by step activity. They need to follow the guide in the checklist. They can perform the maintenance. See. So, do you the fresh graduates now actually can join in the FM company provided we have a tools, we have the application that we build in the phones. Then they can use a QR code to scan and pop up the checklist for these equipments and do step by step and pick up the information occur, pick up the symptoms, record it and then send it back to HQ, send it back to office, where the other maintenance team, the professional, the expert people that they already have in the organization that they can understand, analyze it, maybe they can give a guide to this new young technician. So do you think you need experience to repair the aircon if you have guide? Because most likely DIY, man. I even can open up my MacBook from the YouTube. I can repair my own notebooks, from the YouTube. So as long as I have a tools, the tool is the knowledge that they plug in the website. So they put a guideline, step by step, how to perform the function. So the tools now, the application, of course, we have. If I want to say I want to promote, of course, we have Akibas, but this one of the tools that are available, And of course, we need to come up with a proper guideline, proper step-by-step maintenance inside the application. Sometimes you bought an application, you don't have this detail. They have a ready steps, but you need to put the ingredient. It's like It's like the ingredients, how to form, how to cook things, inside this system, inside the Akibas. Without this, Akibas cannot help you to perform the work. Yes, there is a scheduling inside the system, but you need to tell the system how to schedule. You cannot copy paste other side inside to other side schedule to the new side. It doesn't match. You need to think. You need to brainstorm. You need to come up with the proper plan for your new site. It's not a copy paste thing. And don't make mistake. You copy paste, it doesn't, then you spend a lot of time rectifying your mistake on the other side. You bring over to the new site. So it will not be the same. You need to analyze it. You need to analyze your preventive maintenance activity. You cannot just copy the other side, bring it over here. Doesn't match. So basic tools, simple tools. You can see the phone. So you can use phone as and you install the apps inside the phones, and then you have step by steps, checklists, and you need to be an expert to perform a simple maintenance activity, unless it's the special thing like rectifying the issues, the big issues. Of course, then you require a proper experienced person. By having that, you can reduce your cost. So trust me, I've been seeing a lot of these wastages of cost from the wrongly planned, wrong strategy approach, and cost them a lot of money. So of course, I don't do maintenance activity. I don't do the FM physical works, but most of the client that we serve, we saw, we learn, and then we tell them what needs to be done the proper way. We don't touch about technical matters, and we know that technical matters have expert on it, but we touch about the processes that is wrongly approached, the activity that's by mistake because of the carry over from the previous site to a new site. So I think we need to change that that attitude. We need to look new site is new things. It's not the same thing like what we did last month for the other building. So it will not be the same. Okay, how about that question?
Yeah, Mr. Sharanun, the advent of technology has really transformed the way we do things, the way we manage our facilities as well. Previously, we used to have maintenance personnel. They use Excel, to capture data, but this Excel cannot capture so big data for us, and they cannot give us live updates. So with the advent of computerized maintenance management systems such as Akibos and several other platforms as well. So we can now capture big data. We can send work requests to the relevant personnel on site. They can even use their mobile, like you said, to capture this data, bring it back for further analysis, and to also capture equipment maintenance history. I think there are lots of applications for us.
Yeah, Malik, when we go to the bank,
Yeah.
when we go to the bank, that guy want to repair the ATM machine. They put a camera to repair the ATM machine. So why? Because they got money inside it.
Exactly.
So because of that money, they want to monitor it. This guy doing the right maintenance. Just imagine, if we do a simple, they just use a simple camera. Now this camera is very cheap, even online. You can put the phone and record it live, to record your maintenance activity. What is go wrong? We have record, we have things to analyze, and then we can improve it further. It's like the tools is very cheap nowadays, and we can to see how we do things. We can rectify and we can put the camera, to how to see whether our people do the right things, and when somebody watching us, definitely we want to perform it the right way. And when somebody monitor the ATM machine rectification works, So they do right things, They do right way, So they want to make mistake, because if they make mistake, they go end up in jail. Try to steal the money in the ATM machine, So why not we use it for doing our maintenance activities, And we have cameras, everything. And these people can just start doing their jobs. And if they saw that they thought they are being monitored. So actually we've been monitored daily, right? And you know that we've been monitored, our activity, our behavior is being monitored daily. But because we don't get punishment on that our mistake daily, that's why we forgot about our praying time, the way we speak, because we don't get punishment on that particular time. So it's like the bank, the ATM machine, if they saw they make mistake or they stole money, then they got punishment on that particular time. So
Yeah.
that's why they do it proper way. So because you're not thinking that. So if we think that we are actually doing without monitor, so we doing perform very well, so we need to have this kind of machine. But the issue is not because of we are not performing very well. That's why we need to have this machine to monitor us, the checklist to monitor us, to do step by step whether we are following the step or not, whether we declare or not. Because of that, because of this behavioral, because this people's thinking, the way we act, the attitudes. So if we change, if we have a very good system we put in place, but we don't have a good behavior, good attitudes on maintenance, so the thinking about the good mission and vision, it didn't match, So our machine, our good system, it become a big elephant, or white elephant, or red elephant, or whatever elephant you want to call it. So I don't know why they call it white elephant. Why not they call it red elephant?
Sure.
Okay, so I think we almost 10 o'clock, So I think we can talk about this maintenance. Maybe perhaps next week we have other panels to touch base. I'm interested to see, I think I watched a new YouTube's related to maintenance, the aircraft maintenance, I thought that when these people cannot fly, so the cost is lower, I mean, but it's much difficult when the airline cannot fly their aircraft, The maintenance cost, the maintenance activity becomes tremendously high. You should watch the video. You should watch the YouTubes about it. Very nice.
Yes, I think I watched the video, Mr. Sharino.
Yeah.
Most of us are thinking during this COVID situation now, they don't need to maintain the aircraft. They're really spending a lot of money now,
Yeah.
Because so I even saw where they had to protect the engine from some insects,
Yeah, that's
going into the
surprising me,
engine. Yeah.
Because I thought that, I mean, they incurred more money, more cost to maintain the aircraft that cannot fly compared to if the aircraft is flying,
Yeah.
So if the aircraft flying, they're generating the income, and the maintenance cost will be balanced, Because why they maintain? Because they are flying, But now they need to maintain because they need to make sure the aircraft is in good condition, then they can use it,
Yeah.
So imagine, so this is like COVID-19, we saw this business, the opportunity. I mean, suddenly the airline don't have enough staff enough maintenance staff, because all the while the flight is flying, they have a predictive maintenance based on the kilometer, based on flying hours and everything, Then their maintenance team is just enough to do just in time activity, But now all the aircraft is landed,
Yes.
So I don't think they have enough personnel to maintain.
Some of them, they don't even have space, to park the aircraft.
Yeah.
To park them on runways,
Yeah.
So they need to make them be in a good condition so that when they fly again, it will be safe to fly. It teaches us one thing anyway, that maintenance is an ongoing process. It has to keep on going on, and moving on. Yeah, so we need to carry out maintenance activities at all times. We don't neglect our assets, our facility, so that they can perform at optimum performance for us. Yeah. I think we've come to the end of the question. That was our last question. So I think we lost our speaker there, Mr. Sharainon, but he'll be joining us shortly. So yeah, we've seen the basics of maintenance, where we discuss what maintenance is, the strategies involved in maintenance, then what are the kind of data that will be generated during the maintenance phase of our facility, how we can leverage on this data, how we can use this data to make informed decisions. We also saw where our speaker told us about using technological tools to manage our activities, yeah, and to manage our big data we generate. So we also saw how maintenance is an ongoing process from the aircraft maintenance. So having given us this basis, so we are preparing ourselves for next week. So we're going into predictive analytics in full. So I think we urge you all to join us and see how our panels will do justice and discuss about predictive analytics in facilities management. So I think we lost our speaker. He's trying to join, but he's still trying to connect. So it's almost 10. So perhaps we will conclude this this webinar for tonight. And we urge you all to join us by next week on Thursday, same time by 8:30 p.m. So maybe you have a quick word from our speaker. Is he on now?
Yeah, sorry, I think I disconnect just now.
Okay.
So thank you very much for your time. Sorry for suddenly the system disconnected. Anyway, we see you all next week for another session talking about the imitation game predictive analytics in FM. So thank you very much for your time and see you all next week. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharainon, for a wonderful insights. And thank you very much, our participants, for staying with us up to this moment. And we really appreciate your time. And we'll be expecting you by next week. Have a good night.